All right, welcome everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us for this explainer today. We are about to unlock one of the most powerful, literal game changers in all of Excel. We're going to completely demystify the if function. Now, if you've ever lost an entire Friday afternoon just manually sifting through rows and rows of data, trying to figure out who passed a test, who gets a bonus, or which orders need special attention, well, you are going to absolutely love this. Think of this explainer as your ultimate guide to automating logical decision-making in your spreadsheets. We're going to take your spreadsheets from being these static, boring tables and turn them into highly dynamic thinking tools. Let's get into it.
So here is our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll meet the if function. Then we'll cover the rules of comparison. Third is performing calculations and nesting. Fourth, we're powering up with and or. And finally, number 5, fixing common mistakes.
Okay, part 1. Meet the if function, the fork in the road.
To really wrap our heads around this, I want you to imagine the if function as a bouncer. Actually, a really strict bouncer at an exclusive club. At its core, it's just Excel checking an ID by asking a what-if question. And to do its job, this bouncer needs exactly 3 instructions from you. First, it needs a logical test. Something like, hey, is the value in cell B2 greater than or equal to 50? Second, it needs the value if true, meaning what exactly should Excel do if the answer is yes? And third, it needs the value if false. What should it do if the answer is no? It's just sitting there waiting for you to tell it exactly how to handle both of those scenarios.
Okay, let's dive into this with a real-world example, like grading some students. So we've told our Excel bouncer that to pass, a score needs to be greater than or equal to 50. Look at Anna. She has a 78, so she easily gets a pass. Ben has a 45. Now 45 is not 50 or higher, so he gets bounced. He gets a fail. Chai scored a 90, which is clearly a pass. But look really closely at Dara at the bottom there. Dara scored exactly 50. Because our logical condition explicitly states greater than or equal to 50, Dara successfully passes.
Moving right along to section 2, the rules of comparison, learning Excel's secret code.
So to give our Excel bouncer the right instructions, we obviously need to speak its language. And here is that secret code, the comparison operators. Honestly, most of these you probably remember from middle school math class. Greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. But I do want to draw your attention to 2 specific things here. First, look at the symbol for not equal to. It's a little weird. It's a less than sign followed immediately by a greater than sign. It kind of looks like an angled bracket diamond. Second, and this is a really big one, folks, do not confuse the formula's opening equal sign with the equal to comparison operator. Remember, every single formula in Excel starts with an equal sign just to wake the program up. The comparison operator we're talking about happens inside the parentheses.
And this brilliantly illustrates a major rule of the if function that trips up so many people. When you want Excel to spit out a specific word, like pass, fail, high, whatever it is, that text result absolutely must appear inside quotation marks. That tells Excel, hey, this is a word I want you to print, it's not a cell reference. But on the flip side, if you want Excel to return a number like a 10 or a 0, you do not use quotation marks. If you accidentally put a number in quotes, Excel treats it as text. And why does that matter? Because if you try to add up all those numbers later, your formula will completely crash.
All right, section 3, performing calculations and nesting, leveling up your formulas.
Now that we've mastered the basics, we're shifting gears. We're moving from having Excel just return simple words to making the if function trigger actual mathematical calculations and complex chained logic. Instead of just returning a yes or no, if can do dynamic math for you. Say you want to calculate a 10% bonus, right? But only if sales are at least 100. If they're less, the bonus is a strict 0. Check out the numbers here. The first salesperson hit 150 in sales. The formula sees that 150 is greater than or equal to 100, so it calculates 10% of 150, giving them a nice 15 bonus. But the second person hit 80. Since that is below our 100 threshold, the formula just skips the math entirely and returns a 0.
But wait, what if you have more than 2 possible outcomes? What if it's not just pass or fail, but excellent pass or fail? This is where nested ifs come to the rescue. You literally put an if inside another if. It's like a Russian nesting doll. Excel tests these conditions sequentially, right from left to right. It starts at step 1. Is the score 80 or higher? If yes, it prints excellent, and boom, it immediately stops. If no, it moves on to step 2. Okay, is it 50 or higher? If yes, it prints pass, and it stops. If it fails that one too, it finally falls back to step 3, fail. The absolutely crucial takeaway here, Excel stops checking the very second it hits the first true condition.
Section 4. Powering up and/or. The if function sidekicks. Sometimes our data bouncer needs to check multiple IDs or conditions at the exact same time before letting someone through. And this is where things get really interesting. These two sidekicks, and or, have completely different personalities. The and function, very, very strict. For and to give you a true result, every single condition you feed it must be true. If even one tiny thing fails, the whole thing fails. On the other hand, the or function is super laid back and flexible. Or requires at least one condition to be true. If you give it 10 conditions and just one of them passes, the or function waves you right on through. Let's look at a scenario to see this in action. We're determining employee bonuses, but the company rules are strict. An employee only receives a bonus if they meet all 3 of these criteria. Their sales must be at least $10,000, their attendance must be at least 80%, and their performance rating must be excellent. Because they have to hit every single one of those benchmarks, this is the absolutely perfect job for our strict sidekick, the and function.
So the crucial point is how this actually plays out in the real data. Take Maya. She had $12,500 in sales, she had 95% attendance, and an excellent performance rating. She met all 3, so she is qualified and she gets her 5% bonus calculation, which earns her $625. Lynn also hit all 3 and takes home $750. But look at Arun and Nita. Even if they hit 1 or 2 of the goals, they missed at least one metric. Arun's sales were only $8,000, and Nita's attendance was 70%. Because the and function demands total perfection across the board, they got bounced to the not qualified result and received a $0 bonus.
All right, our final section, Section 5, Fixing Common Mistakes, Your Formula Safety Net.
Okay, you are now equipped with some incredibly powerful tools, but I want to proactively save you hours of future frustration because, let's face it, everyone's formulas break at some point. Let's rapid fire through the most common pitfalls. Number 1, forgetting quotation marks around your text. If your formula says pass instead of pass in quotes, Excel will freak out and throw an error. Number 2, typing the equals sign before the greater than sign. It's always greater than or equal to, so the arrow always comes first. Number 3, forgetting the false result altogether, which just leaves Excel hanging. Number 4, and honestly, this is the golden rule for nested ifs, ordering your thresholds incorrectly. You must always test your highest threshold first. Think about it. If you test to see if a score is over 50 before checking if it's over 80, an 85 will trigger that 50 rule and just stop dead in its tracks. You'll never see the excellent rating. And finally, missing closing parentheses. If you nest 3 ifs, you need 3 closing parentheses at the very end. Always count them up.
And just like that, you have officially mastered the art of logical decision-making with the if function. You can now categorize, calculate, and completely automate the logic in your spreadsheets. It's a real game changer. But I do want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question today. Now that you have all this brilliantly categorized data sitting in a massive spreadsheet, how do you pull up one specific person's results instantly without endlessly scrolling? If the I function organizes the data, what function fetches it? Well, you are just going to have to join us for our next explainer on finding information instantly with VLOOKUP to find out. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you next time.